Breaking news today. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the blustering leader of Wagner, may have realized his power is dwindling. The oligarch knows what is expected of him in the Putin system, whether it be mercenaries advancing the Kremlin's agenda in remote parts of the world, internet trolls, or establishing a standard for cannon fodder derived from convicted criminals. Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin's rants have become somewhat routine at this point. The best strategy for resolving a conflict with Russia's Ministry of Defense is to provoke maximum outrage, use profanity liberally, declare that the situation is hopeless, and then, miraculously, reach a settlement. So it went in the battle over ammunition, when Prigozhin threatened to pull his troops out of the Bakhmut battle if he didn't get the bullets he needed. Evidently, he got some, because he stayed. The latest in the war in Ukraine worries Russia is conducting a survey of its underwater power plants. This past week, he has been vocally opposed to signing a contract that would place his forces under the command of the Russian military. Following Vladimir Putin's insistence that a deal be reached, Prigozhin arrived in Moscow on Friday with his own contract, which aims to formally establish Wagner as a military force on par with the Russian armed forces but distinct from it. He demands an assured supply of arms and ammunition, the presence of Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu at every Wagner meeting, and the appointment of a Wagner representative to act as Shoigu's deputy. He also demands criminal investigations into the Wagner troops' superior officers whom he holds responsible for their deaths due to inadequate equipment. Advertisement: neither Shoigu nor Putin is likely to accept any of those proposals. The impasse remains. While typical of Prigozhin, this may be an act of desperation on his part as he sees his power dwindling. According to Russian journalist and security services expert Andrei Soldatov, just before the Ukrainian counteroffensive, there was this idea that Wagner was the only really capable military unit on the Russian side. Wagner's role in the counteroffensive appears to be diminishing. The Russian army is rising to prominence, and Prigozhin is receiving less attention than he did a month ago. The Russian president's strategy has always been to create discord in order to maintain his authority. Play Prigozhin off of Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, who signed the army contract, and the Russian Ministry of Defense to keep both parties from thinking too highly of themselves. With one possible exception that he quickly rectified, Prigozhin has been very careful to avoid any direct criticism of the Russian president. According to Andrei Kolesnikov of the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center, he is a product of the Kremlin. While it's possible for him to be opposed to some members of the elite, he'd vanish overnight if he took a stand against Putin. Rather than being killed off, Prigozhin would prefer to simply vanish into the faceless bureaucracy he despises. Prigozhin knows his place in the Putin system, whether it's leading a team of internet trolls, supervising the deployment of mercenaries to advance the Kremlin's agenda in remote regions of the world, or serving as a model for the use of inmates as cannon fodder. Recently, he has been making the rounds in the Russian region, preaching the gospel of increased military and economic mobilization. He probably has a better understanding of the battlefield than anyone else and knows that Putin will have to call for another round of mobilization soon. According to Mark Galeotti, security analyst and director of Mayak Intelligence, this is a kind of meet the people for Prigozhin, should the political technologists in the Kremlin decide that it's worth having him as head of an ultra-patriotic political party. To paraphrase, he realizes that his role as head of Wagner, or at least Wagner in Ukraine, is coming to an end, that Shoigu is not going to let him continue as before. In this case, Prigozhin is wrong about Shoigu. He is more cunning than he appears. The initiative has been given to him.